What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy, back with Hometown Commander. We're back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew my version 1.0 deck list of the Commander in front of us on my quest out brew the magic world. Today we're taking on week 2 of our Ravnica Remastered celebration, where we're covering one deck for every clan. And today we're back with the Orzhov, a guild very well known for a lot of things: ghosts, paying debts, and profit. And today we're going to cover, I think, one of the most popular Orzhov characters of all time in Teysa Karlov. And as always, the deck list will be down in the description for you below. Teysa Karlov is a 4-mana 2/4 human advisor that says if a creature dying would cause a triggered ability of a permanent we control to trigger, that trigger ability triggers an additional time. And that creature tokens we control have vigilance and lifelink. So I think there's really there's one or two ways you could choose to go with the deck. I think it would unsurprise most people that Teysa Karlov is an Aristocrats deck at the end of the day. The interesting part about Teysa Karlov is it's not just straight up make tokens, sacrifice tokens, profit type of deck. What's interesting about Teysa Karlov is we actually have some creatures who, when they die, they make tokens that actually get better with Teysa, because you get twice that amount of tokens, meaning a 1-mana 1/1 creature that makes a 1/1 token that when it dies could turn into 2 1/1s, with her out. And I think that becomes important because it gives us more ways to amass kind of those tokens that we can use later to sacrifice again for more abilities. So first we're going to talk about those things, those creatures that make those creatures when we die. Then we'll talk about our sacrifice outlets, and then we'll kind of wrap it up with some fun things we can do to kind of finish the game. Pardon me, that way. The first is Crawling Chorus. A 1-mana 1/1 toxic one that says whenever it dies, you make a 1/1 might token with toxic one, and this creature can't block. So again, with Teysa or Drivnod, our Phyrexian Horror in the deck that does something very similar to Teysa, we'll get 2 of those. Doomed Traveler, whenever it dies, you make a 1/1 spirit. We have a Greedy Freebooter that when it dies, we scry 1 to make a treasure, which could be just as helpful at times. Hunted Witness, whenever it dies, you make a 1/1 soldier. Imperious Oligarch has Afterlife 1, meaning whenever it dies, you make a 1/1 spirit creature with flying. Ministrant of Obligation makes 2 when it dies, so that would be doubled up to 4. Orzhov Enforcer, again, Afterlife 1, so that would get doubled up to 2. And those are the main ones I can think of. We have some other creatures that make tokens when they die. A Lend of the Dusk grows, and whenever another creature dies, you put a counter on it, and whenever it dies, we make X 1/1 vampires, where X is its power. So that's a cool way to kind of build it up and then sacrifice it right, at a certain point to get a number of 1/1s out of it, and hopefully double that. With Teysa Karlov's ability, we have other effects that make tokens, with things like Charismatic Conqueror that can make tokens for our opponents when their things come in, and try to take advantage of them that way. We also have a creature like Reassembling Skeleton that we can get back from the graveyard that can work out in multiple combos, as long as you have a way to sacrifice Reassembling Skeleton and make enough mana to get it back. Ideally with something like Pitiless Plunderer, whenever the creature dies under our control, we make a treasure that would get doubled to 2, meaning we could replay Reassembling Skeleton, and this is a nice little loop that way. So now let's get into the sacrifice outlets. How are we going to sacrifice some creatures? Well, we have Bartolome, which just came out in Lost Caverns of Ixalan. We can sack a creature or artifact to give it a +1/+1 counter, which is helpful. Carrion Feeder can sack a creature to put a counter on it, and that's pretty cool because we're not just sacrificing things, but we're making it bigger, which is always very helpful. We have something like Yeheni, which can sacrifice a creature to give it indestructible. And that's great because we can do that at any time. And then Yawgmoth, we can pay a life, sack a creature, put a -1/-1 counter on something, and draw a card, again, to kind of remove our opponent's things and sacrifice things for our benefit, as well as Viserys here, just to scry 1. So we have a couple of these sack outlets that allow us to sacrifice things. We also have Phyrexian Altar and Ashnod's Altar to do the same. Sacrificing something for our benefit and get value. Okay, so the game plan generally is going to be sacrifice those things, get the value, from them, get the tokens, sacrifice the tokens. But how do we finish the game? How do most aristocrats finish the game? Decks finish the game? Well, whenever a creature ours dies, we want something to hurt our opponents. Blood Artist. Whenever a creature we control dies, target opponent loses life and we gain a life. Again, with Teysa, that would be doubled. Crew Celebrant. Whenever another creature or planeswalker you control dies, each opponent loses a life, and we gain a life. A Lost Hill Core. Whenever a creature we control dies, each opponent loses a life. Mirkwood Bats. Whenever we make or sacrifice a token, each opponent loses a life. Vindictive Vampire. Whenever a creature we control dies, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and we gain a life. So and then Zulaport Cutthroat. Whenever another creature dies, each opponent loses a life, and we gain a life. So here's some of these effects that are going to be happening when things die or when we sacrifice things to hurt our opponents, and again, they can be doubled with Teysa. We also have things like Bash and Remembrance, which can everybody loses a life when we gain a life whenever one of our creatures we control dies. Same thing with Meat Hook, doing a fairly similar effect whenever one of our creatures dies, each opponent loses a life. And these are the things that we're hoping to get doubled by Teysa or Driven as we sacrifice the tokens and push it forward. We have things like Teysa or Orzhov Scion, the one that just got reprinted in Ravnica Remastered, which says whenever the black creature dies, we make a spirit. So that can get doubled up and adds more back. We have things fun like Luminous Broodmoth that brings creatures back with a flying counter when they die, which allows us to potentially reuse these types of creatures. We have Least the Forgotten Archangel, which says whenever another non-token creature you control dies, return that card to its own hand at the beginning of the next end step. So that's pretty cool because we can again take those creatures and bring them back to our hand, cast them again. These two can work together but are also great on their own. Mondrak can double up some tokens for us and allow us to make more tokens off of our card. I added in Carmen from the Lost Caverns Vixlon deck because when it attacks, we can bring things back from the graveyard, which I feel like could be helpful depending on when certain things die or what things happen. Grim Harspect could draw us cards whenever a non-token creature dies. We have things like Reanimate, Victimize, and Lich Knight's Conquest to potentially bring things back out of our graveyard if we can't get them back by other means. And just ideally, we're trying to make things, sacrifice things, profit from the sacrifice, and hurt our opponents in the process. So let's get into our playtest. We open a 5-lander, which is more than I'd expect from Orzhov, but I think we keep it, obviously. Play a Swamp turn 1 as we have nothing, and we can build into that Isolated Chapel and that Castle Lockflame coming in untapped. Turn 2, we can play the Phyrexian Tower and get that Blood Artist down, get things started up, ready to go. Turn 3, Isolated Chapel into that Black Market Connections. Next turn we can make a treasure, or we can make that 3/2 that we can eventually sacrifice. Turn 4 we get Elenda down. The treasure doesn't feel bad here because Elenda would still, the shapeshifter seems the best because then we can sacrifice something like Plumb the Forgotten or something else and trigger both of our creatures that are out. Turn 5, get the Lockthwin down, get the Teysa out. Again, all we're missing is a sack outlet, but we could draw if we wanted to. I'd probably just make another Shapeshifter. Here we get the Plains, and that's our sacrifice outlet. We can either make +1 to make another token, but I think here we could just easily -4, get rid of both these Shapeshifters we just saw happen. Our opponents have to sacrifice them things. Elenda's getting 4 counters. Blood Artist is dealing 4 damage, and now we've got a cool little... now we got a cool little thing started. Elenda also is getting bigger and has lifelink, so it becomes a decent attacker. This turn we can make another Shapeshifter, make another... I just realized, sorry, when our creatures die, we would actually draw a bunch with Liliana. So this turn, put the Defending down, we can get the Procession down. We'd already have this go off, and we probably just pick the Shapeshifter. So now we could +1 and get 2 zombies. That would have been 4 mana. We had about 3 mana left over. We could get something like Bartholomew down. We could get the Altar down. Just have another way to get access to more things. Make the 2 tokens with Liliana. Attack with the Elenda or wait back and block. And then another land down here. We could make a couple more zombies with Liliana. And, Plumb the Forbidden to draw. Take a bunch of Take a bunch of triggers to go off with Elenda and Blood Artist, net some more cards, net some more things, and this is kind of where we're getting to this loop. We just need to find something else to be damaging our opponents besides the Blood Artist, and then once we find that, the game's probably over. But let me know, what do you think of Teysa Karlov down in the comment section below. I think Teysa is an interesting example of something where your commander doesn't necessarily pay you off for a specific part of sacrificing creatures. It just says, hey, sacrifice creatures and pay off any effect that they care about, which is really cool because it allows you to kind of take advantage of different particular things. This one's a little bit more spun towards the afterlife cards and things like that, you know, using Teysa and using some of the traditional Aristocrats outlets, sneaking Elenda and Carmen in there. But I think you could do a lot of things with this. You could find the ways you like it and make those sacrifice outlets your own. But let me know what you think down in the comments section below, and I will catch you guys next time.